Warning, this video might sound like LinkedIn trash. What's up, YouTube? So I recently introduced some friends. I'm gonna take my headphones off. So I recently introduced some friends to Dungeons and Dragons. D&D, the tabletop role-playing game where you throw dice around. And I used a little one-shot session that I put together over a few days into Shinkansen Red and whatever. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoy like the crafting of worlds and stories and putting people into them and then seeing how they interact with them. But it kind of got me thinking as I was, on my way back home, what else has a person or a small group of people craft and experience for enjoyment or productivity or whatever, only for it to struggle and to resist and to ultimately crumble against the sheer onslaught of that most dangerous vector space that we paradoxically seek to embrace, but can only do so by overcoming the deepest primal fears and instincts baked into us like gooey chocolate chips in a gooey chocolate chip cookie. That's right. Laser sharp product and UI design, where you spend tens to hundreds of hours of meetings deciding what color to make a button, where to put the labels on a form, how this fancy dashboard of charts and maps and plain text user passwords should animate across different screen sizes. And then after all of that, your user just opens your app to look at one number, and they just don't even give a shit, see if it's red or green, and then they respond appropriately. Maybe they're happy about it, maybe they're sad about it. Who knows? And then, just like D&D, where you spend tens to hundreds of hours crafting NPCs and backstories and villages and cities and histories and legends and lattes and big-ass swords and spells. And then your players want to spend 6 hours flooding a cave of owlbears that you had to make up because they left the starting city and you found yourself in an improv session with several of your closest friends who were inadvertently pushing the give the DM a panic attack button like a mouse who wants cocaine. Jokes aside, how are they similar? Well, I think that there's three main commonalities. The first of which is that they provide hopelessly flexible experiences. And what does that mean? For D&D, or for similar tabletop storytelling games, the game master will have their vision and their setting and their kind of plan for the story that the characters are going to embark on. And you, of course, want to, push and guide your players into that plan. The problem is your players have a lot of agency, and it's a bit of a downer to have the game master say, no, don't do that. You do want to have players who will follow your breadcrumbs, but perhaps your breadcrumbs are a little too far apart. Perhaps they blend in with the ground too well. Perhaps they don't like bread and they're gonna look for cake. Who knows? It's hard. It's you have to kind of account for all of this, and it's not easy. But that's kind of what I mean by it's hopelessly flexible, right? It's kind of an infinite space, where you can't fully predict what your players are going to do. And you shouldn't be trying to push them too much in a certain direction, because then it's kind of just they're then it's just a walking simulator, but with D&D. And that's, you don't want to do that necessarily. There are some groups that will enjoy that, and that's fine. But in general, I feel like D&D, good, or people who are recognized as good at DMing, being the game master for these tabletop games, typically they'll be flexible about it, and they will have a good way to put their players on a certain path, and similarly the players will also respect the path, the breadcrumbs that are being laid out for them. But it's a delicate kind of dance and synchronization. And so then, how does software product can be much the same, right? Where you plan your UI and you try to guide users down the correct path that gets them to their goal. But inevitably, words are hard. With probability approaching 1 as you add more users, I guess it'd be that way for the recording. As a user eventually is just not going to understand how to use the software. You will eventually find a user who just does not understand the software, and the guidance that you have for that for users is not going to suffice for this one particular user. And in the best case, they'll let you know, and then you can fix it, or you can just directly guide them to how to use it, if it's a small or an infrequent enough occurrence. But in the worst case, they and many others will have a frustrating experience, and then that's bad network effects, that's bad bad reviews, and all of that's generally just a bad thing to deal with. So that's number one. The second commonality is that they are both highly collaborative, right? So whenever you're doing a D&D session, right, then you as the game master are making, or well, things are happening, and you are, providing like the correct, I guess, like surface and like vision to the players, and then they are reacting and doing things doing things reacting to the surface that you provided them. And there will be things behind the surface, like, but in general, like, you're kind of like you're interacting with like that, that like border, which is the game master. And the players will do things, and then you will do things, and then there is kind of this like weird bit where, in between sessions, the game master or the dungeon master is going to be doing a lot of preparation in order to have like stuff ready for the next session, and like make sure that the story still makes sense and all that stuff. But for the most part, it's a very collaborative kind of thing. And then on the software product side, it's kind of similar, right? Like, you produce your product and then you give it to the customers, and then they will use it and then give you feedback, and then you go back and incorporate that feedback and continue on. And in both cases, like, they're both very collaborative things. Like, you can't really like do the thing either playing like a tabletop storytelling game or making a software product without both players, and like both players, or both sides, and both sides generally acting in good faith, right? Like, if you have a bunch of players or a DM who is just like, I just want everyone else to die, then like, that's bad. Similarly, if you have a development team or customers who are just like, I'm not going to use your thing the way that you want me to, or I'm not going to develop the thing for your needs because I don't care about you, then that's also bad. That's not how things succeed. Usually, I'm sure there's exceptions, but I don't think that's a good strategy in general. And then, kind of related to that, and sort of the last and I think most directly relevant commonality, is that both dungeon master role, game master role, and developing software products, they're both like very extreme exercises in empathy. And kind of what that means is, again, like, if you're developing a product, right, you can't get very far, or, well, I guess you can, but you probably won't get very far if you can't empathize with your customers, understand their needs and what's important, and then almost kind of as critically, like, what feels important to them. Like, sometimes it's not actually what's really important to them, that they are like cognizant of, but there are things that they feel are important to them, and then like, if you can hit those, then like, that's also really valuable to customers, right? But in either case, like, you have to empathize with them very well, and you have to actually listen to their feedback, and like, try and understand where they're coming from and like what perspective they are approaching your product from. And then similarly, like, if you're crafting a story or an experience for your players, especially if they'll be sitting at the table with you, it's kind of different if you're just like building a like an indie game, right? In that case, like, you can kind of just like, you don't necessarily need to have like to receive feedback. You can just like make your game and put it out there, and you can just leave it. But if you're making like a story for players who will be at the table with you, then you have to not only make it enjoyable for them, but like, you also have to consider their characters. Or you have to make it enjoyable for the players, right? And that requires a level of empathy. But then you also have to consider their characters, and then how do their characters fit into your story? How do their characters' motivations and goals and struggles and all of that, like, how do those fit into your story and the experience that you're crafting? And then how do you like incorporate them in a way that makes sense and is is satisfying and fulfilling for the players, as well as the characters that they are role playing as. This was just kind of like, kind of a thought that I had, that I started writing stuff down, and kind of turned into this. So, let me know what you think. This was kind of just just kind of off the cuff sort of thing. I did write some notes, but like, they're not. I didn't. Yeah. Anyway, hope you enjoyed. Like and subscribe, and also, thanks for all of the people who subscribed to the channel so far. I did not expect to get like 150 extra subscribers in the past like 2 months, but that is what happened. And thank you to all of you. It is weird, and I don't really know how to respond. So thank you, and I will try to keep making more videos, and I'll try to make more book reviews. Right now, I'm currently trying to finish up the Malazan Book of the Fallen. I'm on near the end of book 9. So once that's done, I can read other things that are not this incredible fantasy series. Also, I'll probably just make a book review of the Malazan series. That's light on spoilers. But anyway, so yeah. So thanks for watching. Thanks for watching my little like end of video spiel. Please let me know what you think, what you want to see, and please like and subscribe because it helps me feel good about myself and make me want to do more of these. So yeah, thanks. Have a good one.